terrible clap.
Well, that'll do.
Okay, I'm going to do a proper clap.
No, it's fine because that will match the audio up anyway.
I want to do a proper clap. We'll start from now.
Well, you can do another clap, but you know what's going to happen with this clip, don't you?
What?
I'm going to turn it into a social media post.
I'm doing a clap.
Go.
You ready for the clap?
Wow.
That was a good clap.
I tell you what, viral.
Howdy. Welcome to No Bull Just Beef, the small business marketing podcast. We're your hosts, Todd and Joe, or should it be Joe and Todd? Every episode of this, we chat about business and marketing and have a little bit of fun. So whether you're in the car, doing a workout, or just relaxing at home, we're here to bring you insights, laughter, and stories. So let's explore the world of small business marketing together. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our monthly adventures. Let's get the conversation started. So, Todd, they call you the content cowboy. Why is that?
Well, technically, I call myself the content cowboy, and then they just read it off social media. But
Okay.
they do call me the content cowboy.
Some call you the gangster of love.
They definitely don't call me that. They call me a content cowboy, I'm called the content cowboy because we create content marketing and we have a Wild West brand, but also because the way that we approach marketing is very much like cowboys, not in a bad way, in a good way. In terms of no bull, just beef, we help people dig for gold. We shoot from the hip. We say it like it is, because I think we're both in agreement with this. There's a lot of bullshit in marketing, which is why this is called no bull, just beef. So I think that's why I'm called the content cowboy.
Okay. And tell me about content. Why do people need content? Why is it relevant?
Because you're literally consuming it now. We consume content all the time. And I don't want to like completely ruin my industry here, but I think we consume too much content. There's so much content out there now. I heard this ridiculous thing said this morning, but for the first time ever in history, it's like, well, of course, for the first time ever in history, but for the first time ever in history, we have far too much content. You've got the answers to every conceivable problem that you probably have right there, apart from a few things, in content. There's just so much content.
Why is that a problem?
Because people don't know what content is correct, what content's right, what content they should read. It's just an overwhelm of content. But it is also a great thing as well. And then to answer your question, why should we have content? It's because people want to consume content. We need answers to things. We're constantly searching for stuff. And when you're scrolling through social media, when you're Googling, when you're using AI tools, when you're reading emails, when you're watching TV, when you're listening to podcasts, you are consuming content. So as a business, you need to consume content or you'll be invisible. So that's why you need to create content.
Okay. What kind of content should businesses be consuming?
Good question. What content do you think people should be creating?
I write the questions around here.
Okay, that's fine. I have an answer.
Entertaining, fun, interesting, something that helps them, something that makes them excited, inspired, that kind of thing.
I would add to that you create the content that your audience is already looking for or needs to hear or wants to hear. So,
I'm not looking for dog videos. They find me.
but that's because of algorithms, which we may or may not get into. But you want dog videos, and people who are selling dog treats, dog coats, dog anything know that to get your attention, they don't share the coat or the treats, they share the dogs so that you consume that content and that gets you engaged in it, and then you're served more of that content. So what content should you create? You should create the content that your audience wants, needs, is looking for, is already consuming. So you look at trends, things that are happening already. You know the answers already, what your audience wants. And we'll probably get into this in a little bit, but your customers, clients, audience are already telling you what they want. Give them what they want. Give them that content that they're going to consume, going to be interested in, going to come back to, going to watch for more than a few seconds. That's the type of content you want to create. What shouldn't you create is sales posts and stuff about your inner workings of your company that's really a bit boring and dull and dry. Nicole and I were talking earlier about how we can create content about Team Spaghetti and about how well we work well together. And we both agreed unanimously that, I'm amazed I could say that word.
Well done.
You're quite impressed with that, right?
Do carry on.
But we both agreed, damn it.
There we go.
We both agreed unanimously that we didn't want it to be self-serving and we didn't want it to be interesting to us. We both said in different ways, well, if I was watching this, would it be interesting or entertaining? Would it be fun? Would it say what we're trying to say, but not like in black and white terms? So it's still got the underlying message underneath it. Because I think it's far too many people put boring corporate videos out, blog posts that are just self-serving, or social media posts that here at XYZ company, we sell blah, blah, blah. And it's like, nobody gives a shit what you sell, really. People care about the difference you make to their lives and their businesses and everything else. So you can still get these key points across, but you've got to always think about your customer. And it's such a cliche, but you've got to think about your audience. Like, what are they going to be interested in? You're definitely interested in dog treats, but your dog is more interested in dog treats than you. You're actually more interested
The
in
little paws just don't work on the eye bone.
exactly.
I have to do it for her.
Should we get into your dog's Twitter account? No, we'll do that later. You're interested in the happiness and well-being of your dog.
Mm.
So what dog treat companies show you is a happy dog, because you're like, oh wow, I'd love a happy dog if you haven't already got one, and you know what a content and a happy dog looks like, and all of the fun stuff. Particular breeds will do particular things. Your particular breed of dog, a Chihuahua, is just a yappy ball of fluff. So that's what you'd see, and you'd be like, oh look, they're all dickheads just like mine. So when they're sharing dog treats, they're not saying, here Joe, buy some dog treats. They're saying, here's a dog breed that you love.
Okay, so give me an example of a normal sort of business that you have met. How are they supposed to find out what kind of content their audience wants?
It's by listening to their customers. So a really, really simple way for everyone listening to, or watching this to do is to, if you have FAQs on your website, that's a great place to go. Secondly, look at every inbox inquiry you've had over the last 3 months. Take every single one of those and put them into ChatGPT and say, give me the common words from all of these paragraphs, and it will give you the problems your customers are searching for.
Right.
In our world, it would be, I really need to get my brand on social media, or I need to sell my services on social media, or I really need help creating a blog post or some email marketing, or do you guys help with SEO? Your customer's already asking you the questions. So that's one place you can look. The other place is a bit more detailed, but ask your customers. And when you're listening to them and when you're having conversations with them, like we have quarterly reviews, we could use our quarterly review data. We could look at it all and find the common things people say. And the reason I want the common things is because you want to find common themes and things amongst all of your ideal customers, so you can find more like those people. So if you use Facebook ads, you'll use lookalike audiences. It's the same type of thing in this. You're listening to the words that your current customers are saying and thinking, well, this is the type of stuff I should be talking about, the problems I should be solving with my content, because it's going to attract more people similar to ones I've already got.
Okay. And we're talking about repurposing content today. So what is repurposing content? What do you mean by that?
We could use this podcast as an example, couldn't we? So
Let's.
I do like the sarcastic additions to our podcast. It's all good. We don't talk like this at home. Maybe we should. Do you think, like, on a Friday night, on date night, I'm going to take 2 microphones to the restaurant? Do you know what? If we set this up in a restaurant, it's a slight tangent, listeners. Apologies for this. If we did this, people would watch.
I mean, I am hungry now. There is like there's a chicken shop that I've already got my eye on over the road.
Let's stay on track, Joe.
Let's.
What was the question?
Repurposing content. Why is repurposing content important?
This podcast is ideal for people to listen to, and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
I mean, ideal is a strong word.
It's perfect, honestly.
It's tolerable at best.
No matter who you are, you should listen to it. So I think a lot of people create great content, and then that content then disappears. That's it. It goes online, goes on a podcast, that's it. We've had a few hundred downloads of the first podcast. Great. That wasn't really our aim, though. Our aim was to create more marketing content, more social media content. The repurposed content from the podcast, the Reels, the TikToks, have had way more views, way more reach than the podcast, because we've repurposed the content.
Is that because your crotch was front and centre of the repurposed content?
I should say, if you watched the first podcast, and I say watched, there's lots of clips of it, I honestly had no idea that my balls were on show. And if you want to know what we're talking about, just scroll up if you're watching this on social media. That's not the reason, Joe. The reason is because people like short form content as much as they like long form content. So repurposing a podcast into short form videos, which is what we're already doing, works rather well. You can do this elsewhere as well, of course. Blog posts can be emails can be social media can be videos. I want people to always think about this when they're creating a piece of content. I'm going to create a piece of content about dog treats. How does this look on Instagram Reels? How does it look on TikTok? How will I email it? Will it appear on my blog? What will it look like on there? How could I create videos on it? How will it appear on my podcast? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A webinar, a workshop, a talk. You can just keep going with it.
You can keep going with
I
it.
probably will.
And interestingly, you've said about short form content, and yet there you are, still talking.
Dramatic pause. I'm not even going to bite tonight. I'm not even biting.
Should we take a short pause because the camera has died?
We could do. Has it definitely died?
Yeah, the one on the left has died.
Okay. Yeah. Just leave it running and I'll just cut it. We heard a noise. Which is fine because the audio is the bit we need to roll through. Yeah, but we can just use the other angle. It's fine.
The whole thing?
No, not the whole thing. Cool. Do you want to check the sound again, or are you okay? Just carry on because I'll just use it.
Okay.
I'll just cut that bit out.
Okay. So, Todd, how do you repurpose a single piece of content to make sure that it's relevant for all the platforms?
Really good question. I think a common mistake people make with their content is they put it on all the platforms. Great. I'm doing thumbs up. That's great. But they put it in exactly the same way on all the platforms. So an example of this would be they create a short form video and they put it on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook and YouTube in exactly the same way. But those are all different platforms and the algorithms differ. They are trying to copy each other at the moment, but they do differ. And one video will, if it's exactly the same video, and we've proven this, it'll perform really, really well on one channel, not another. So you've got to think about the platforms. And I know that this gets into details that people might not be that interested in, so I'll keep it quite top level. But you've got to have a little bit of an understanding of what works on Instagram and what works on emails and what works on videos, what works on podcasts. Essentially, at the moment, you and I are creating two pieces of content in one go because we are, well, I am anyway, I don't know if you are. I'm conscious that as we create this podcast, I am going to be in the future Todd is going to be editing the videos from this podcast.
And also not forgetting to put it on OnlyFans.
I'm not going to put my cock and balls on the internet again. It's not happening. But we're also creating a podcast. So hello to you if you're listening to the podcast. Thank you for sticking with us. Someone sent me a screenshot this week where they were on the treadmill listening to me talking about being on the treadmill, listening to podcasts, which is kind of cool.
That's an inception in the gym.
We're creating two pieces of content. So we are consciously, or I am anyway, creating audio content, but also video content at the same time. And how will it look on Instagram? How will it look on TikTok? So you do need to have a good understanding of that. So we couldn't do loads of visual things in this podcast recording because it would be no good to people listening. It'd be great for the video, but we can't do that. So it's about thinking about how will this end up? What platform is it on? What does it look like on there? And then having a bit of education and saying, well, what actually works on Instagram? What works on Facebook? What's the best way to put this into email? Because far too many people take the same piece of content and put it on all the platforms. That's not repurposing it. That's copying and pasting it. That's a different thing altogether.
Okay. So have you got any clever ideas of turning, for example, a blog post into an Instagram story or a TikTok video? How would you go about doing that?
Really simple one off the bat. Most blog posts, generally speaking, cover a topic. So how to do X, Y, Z in 7 steps. That's a really easy one. You've got 7 steps there. So let's take those 7 steps. That's 7 short videos. Dead easy. Those videos can sit in their as complete videos on their own. They make sense on their own. So let's say 7 ways to repurpose content. Number 1 could be turn your podcast into a video. That is one perfect video all on its own. Right. So we've taken one of those tips into a piece of content. So that's one way of looking at it. So blog content is easy to turn into social media. You just take the valuable pieces of content and turn them into smaller valuable pieces of content. So from a blog post, let's say there's 7 points. That's 7 videos. Okay. I would then take that to LinkedIn and get that turned into a PDF. So you can post it as a carousel. So you've got a blog post about repurposing content, and then you have 7 cards on the carousel that you can flick through from left to right with the 7 points on LinkedIn. You can also do exactly the same thing if you wanted to on Instagram. You would create them as a square graphic rather than a PDF. So you're repurposing it again. So now you've got 7 ways to repurpose content on Instagram with 7 square images that you can scroll through. And then you would then create portrait JPEGs for stories on Instagram and Facebook, both very similar platforms in terms of stories, put those together. And then you could then create those 7 tips into maybe a movable graphic driven video. So you can take those 7 graphics, put them into Canva and turn them into a short form video as well. And then you could then do the 7 ways to repurpose content as a podcast. And then you take the 7 bits out of the podcast into short form video and repurpose it from then on. It's what I've always talked about as kind of one big idea. You have one piece of content, and then you say, how will this apply to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, X, blogs, emails, talks, webinars, podcasts, and whatever you fill. So we are actually using this podcast and our workshops now to frame all of the marketing for the rest of the year.
So you create all this stuff, you send it out there. How many people actually end up seeing even one of those things?
That's an interesting question. Do you want actual data, or are you asking it for a reason?
I don't want numbers. No, I don't do numbers.
I didn't think you did. So what's the real question?
The real question is, you can create all these pieces of content, and I think sometimes people assume that you put out 300 pieces of content, and everyone will see it. But what's the reality behind that?
The reality is very few people see your content, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You want the right people to see your content. And I'm actually speaking at an event soon that you spoke to them recently, where we're going to talk about how your social media actually supports your sales conversations instead. It's the right people seeing your content that matters. So people worry about reach and clicks and views and all that kind of thing. It's actually more important who listens to your content, who watches your content. But yeah, it is a bit of a myth that you just throw as much content out as possible and you get loads and loads and loads of views. It's not always the case, especially if you put the same piece of content out on all the platforms all at the same time. Most people will scroll past the content. Oh, I saw that on Instagram earlier. They will just subconsciously scroll past it. But of course, some of your audience will be Instagram, some will be on Facebook, some will be LinkedIn, some will be on your podcast, some will watch the short form video. Some people will listen to your content and then watch the video. Some will open the email and read your Instagram post. So having it across multiple platforms is a good idea, but it's not going to just create you loads of views. What really creates great views is great content.
Okay. And have you ever had a post bomb on one platform, but it's worked really well and taken off on another?
Yeah, all the time. I bomb all the time. I took a clip from this podcast actually last month, and I put the same video. I posted it separately to TikTok and Instagram, and I used Instagram's captions and all the things I talk about on Instagram, and I posted it to TikTok, and I used the hashtags within TikTok that would work really, really well. It performed really, really well on TikTok, and I got a handful of views on Instagram.
Why is that?
I don't actually know.
Okay. Can I have someone who knows something?
I've got a few ideas. Instagram at the moment, although there's a rumor they're changing this, Instagram is driven more by your fans, your followers, and TikTok is more driven by the For You page. So if you create content on TikTok that's quite popular at the moment, or it's just a topic that people find interesting on TikTok, your video will be shown to those people. So as an example, someone's watching a piece of content about rally cars, and you create a video about rally cars, that person will probably see your video because they're watching lots of that content. TikTok needs to keep feeding people more and more of that stuff to keep them there. Instagram's slightly different. It relies on the follower count. We don't have many followers on our Instagram, a couple of thousand, I think. So the pool is quite low there. On TikTok, I've got all of TikTok, in theory.
Potential.
Yeah. I've got all of TikTok. So the audience is much larger there. So yeah, it happens. That said, sometimes it can be the other way around. And, sometimes the views are poor on one platform and better on another. Sometimes you get very, very few views of one piece of content, but it makes more money for you because the right person sees that content. So it's not always about the views.
And what does that teach you in terms of the success of different pieces of content on different platforms?
You've got to keep trying. and you've got to keep going. We get accused of being everywhere, don't we? You're everywhere, we're all over the place. And people wrongly, rightly, or in between those two statements, assume that it's working for us. Not all of our content is working for us. A lot of our content doesn't work for us. What it teaches us is it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing all the time. You can't rest on your laurels. If you do something today on LinkedIn and it works, great, keep doing it. But be prepared for it to stop working very, very quickly, because ultimately everyone works out what works and does the same thing. So human beings are like, I'm bored of polls now. Like polls on LinkedIn used to be the thing. You used to be able to create a poll on LinkedIn. You still get pretty good views.
I like a poll.
I like a poll,
It's
but people don't vote on them.
It's an easy thing to vote on.
People don't vote on them as much as they used to.
Yeah, I still vote occasionally because I like to be heard. I like my voice to be heard.
What was the last poll you voted on LinkedIn?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Was it about dogs?
It was something banal and boring, but I do still like a poll. I know I'm not cool anymore. I wasn't cool 20 years ago. I'm definitely not cool anymore. But yeah, we have moved on since then. So what's the most interesting thing on LinkedIn at the moment?
We've been testing this with one of our clients. It's a difference between it's either really, really short, punchy content or actually quite long form content works really well. Videos.
So either do short content or long content. Brilliant. This is great.
Yeah. It's a bit to add to it. Videos used to be really good and carousels used to be really good, but it's always evolving. So you've got to keep trying different things. But I should add to that it isn't the way you're sharing on the platform. It's what you're sharing. Do your audience give a shit about it? Because if they don't, then it's going to bomb anyway. That's the same with everything, isn't it?
Okay. So in talking about repurposing, how often do you bring back old posts and things that we've written, months or years ago?
Not enough, actually. We've started to do it with our email, haven't we? We've started. It's because we've forgotten to blog.
Definitely not because we haven't created any recent blogs.
No, we haven't forgotten to blog. It's just that we're reusing blog content that's worked before.
We're leading the way in repurposing content.
Yeah, reusing content, Joe, is different to repurposing.
Reusing, okay.
But not as much as we should do, because things change, like trends change, interests change, platforms change. You may well have created a fantastic piece of content last year.
I did. Many.
But it only got 50 views. Today, it might get 50,000 views. You just don't know. There was a thing we watched on Netflix last week. I won't mention it. That's now getting a lot of attention. The original interview that the Netflix documentary talked about is now getting a lot more attention because it's now more trendy to talk about it again.
Yeah.
And the interviewer on the actual original interview that the Netflix documentary was about, she's now all over my social media because, of course, you watch one video, you get more, of course. But she's now spotted her opportunity to get more limelight out of an interview she did a few years ago. So sometimes your content wasn't quite the right time for it to come out, but now it might well be. So it's definitely, you should definitely do that. I watched.
Also Murder on the Dance Floor.
Murder on the Dance Floor?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, you need to explain that now. You can't just, what if there's other people listening like me that are like, what the fuck are you talking about? You need to explain it.
Well, it was brought back recently because it was in a program. You remember the song from off of the 90s?
Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
Yeah, exactly. It's a banging tune.
Banging tune. Now you sound old. Now you sound old.
It was brought back recently in a program.
A bit like what was that? Was that Running Up a Hill song? What was that?
Yeah, Kate Bush.
Was it Kate Bush?
I don't know.
I was going to say Kate Moss, but that's totally wrong.
Wrong person.
That's totally wrong.
Definitely the wrong Kate.
But that was in something. Yes. And that became,
well done.
Now it's been remixed as a dance track.
Cultural
and all sorts.
icons.
We're obviously a finger on the pulse. I can't even remember the question now, Joe, but that was a fantastic
bringing back
thing
old
we talked
posts.
about there. Bringing back old posts. Yeah, we should bring this back.
I'd never want to see this again.
Yeah, you should bring back old posts just to try it, just to give it a go. And also because it might just have not been your moment for that piece of content to work. Like I've had content go viral and I look at it and go, I can see why people liked it, but it could have been so much better. Why now did that work? And sometimes
Are we back to the balls on camera again?
No, we're not.
Okay.
My balls did not go viral on anything. I'm not even convinced it worked for extra views.
Carry on.
But some content that goes really, really well, you look at it and go, why? Why is that done really, really well? And I'm obviously quite obsessed with this because it's our thing and I'm always looking at it.
Maybe it's our mums. They've got a lot of time on their hands. They might be on the internet a little bit too much.
That's like 2 people though.
Okay.
That doth not create a viral post.
Oh, okay. Well, they're doing their best, bless them.
Hi, Mum, by the way.
Mum.
Thanks for watching and listening. They're not watching or listening.
What tools do you use for editing content?
Are we talking about, no.
We're not talking about that kind of tool. This is a different kind of tool.
Are we talking about video editing?
Editing content, what do you use?
A few of my favourite tools that I'm using at the moment, ChatGPT, obviously. Talk about that a lot in the first podcast. So if you are interested in how to use AI tools for marketing, then check out our
Although
first
also
episode.
a big hi to my hater who picked up the last podcast. I said chat
TP.
the wrong way round.
You said Jack.
I don't know what I said.
You just said.
I said it the wrong way round.
I can't say it the wrong way
I know.
round.
I'd love to say that was an Easter egg that I put on purpose to make you watch, but it wasn't. I just got it wrong.
But we should come back to your verbal typos and my bulging trousers, because those are the things that get people to comment on your content. So sometimes your content bombs because the content's rubbish, but sometimes it bombs because there's not interesting things in there to keep people's attention as well. So yeah, Freudian slips in the spoken
It's Freudian.
word.
I think it's just a slip.
It's just a slip.
Yeah.
A
Sometimes
copper.
I watch recipes on TikTok and they were chopping up. There was someone the other day was chopping up a courgette and they left the label on the courgette as they chopped it up, and then they went through and did all the cooking and stuff. Ran to the comments. Everyone was talking about, oh, you left the label on. You've left the label. Of course, they'd left the label on. It was on purpose. It's just to get people to comment and say you left the label on, and it works.
Look at Marks and Spencer's this week. So we're recording this sort of mid-April 2024. Marks and Spencer's have got a high quality garden furniture photo in a magazine where there is a bottle of Lidl wine. And you can't tell me that the photographer didn't spot it. The set, you can't. Like
I don't.
We've been on a set recently, and with photographers, makeup artists,
No, that was an
lighting.
accident. I'm sure that would be an accident.
They looked at everything, absolutely everything. Like take your Apple Watch off, tuck your laces in. I mean, they were a high quality team we worked with from a national newspaper. But this is Marks and Spencer's. It's not just any old photo shoot. It's a Marks and Spencer's photo shoot. Couldn't help but get that in there. So, but that is on purpose. I think it's on purpose. I mentioned in our last podcast, didn't I, about the lady who had the battery-operated toy in the background during a BBC interview. There's no way that was there by accident. You don't keep those things downstairs, right? Apparently. So that
we are talking about tools, by the way.
I am talking about a tool. It's just a very different tool that you're talking about.
Can we talk about
let's get back
tools?
on track to tools.
Yeah.
Tools that I like at the moment. How do we get on that tangent after that?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT says what happens with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a really great tool for repurposing content, because if you can take your entire blog post after a bit of training and talking to it. If you want to know more about that, listen to the first podcast. But after a little bit of training with ChatGPT, posting your blog post in there and saying, now create me 3 LinkedIn posts and an idea for a video and an idea for a podcast, and tell me how I could turn this into XYZ for social media, it will literally create the content. The beauty of that is it actually, if you tell it to, takes your exact words and tone of voice and creates all of your social media content in your tone of voice in the way that you do it. Now, it actually takes too much effort to keep it on brand, I think, sometimes, ChatGPT. Like, you really have to tell it, please do not make this sound like some, no offense to American marketers, but no, I don't want to sound like an American marketer. I'm not an American marketer. I'm a very conservative British man, and I wanted to stay like, what are you laughing at?
No.
Okay. So I want it to stay the same. So ChatGPT is a good tool for that. Get your whole blog post, paste it in there, let it read it. Another tool I really, really like for editing videos isn't iMovie and it isn't all these complicated tools for Mac and Microsoft. It's CapCut. I absolutely love it. It's a cheap and nasty tool, and all video editors out there are going to get hate on me now, but it's so simple to edit your videos. I've actually got the Mac version now as well, which I don't find as easy to use. I just edit most of them on my iPhone, because for social media videos, TikTok are actually training creators to create real life videos rather than overly edited stuff. So it's perfect for there anyway. And do you know what? By the time if you're not a video editor, I should say, by the time you've gone down all the effort of learning how to do it all, done all that stuff badly, and then created these videos, you may as well have just created 5 or 6 poorer quality videos, put them out on social media and got some reach. Like, the content that you put out there is better than the content you don't put out there, even if it's substandard. I'm not saying you should lower your standard levels, but most social media content works better if it's authentic. So I like those 2 tools. They're my favorite ones at the moment.
Okay. So we were talking about keeping the brand voice consistent. You were saying that ChatGPT sometimes forgets what you say and you have to sort of remind it every now and again. But how do you keep that brand voice consistent across the different channels on the different social platforms?
It's a good question. I actually think the example we've just used of taking a large piece of content and turning it into smaller pieces of content is probably the easiest way of doing it. So if you create a podcast or a 25, 30-minute video for YouTube or a blog post or a long email, those are really big pieces of content in this day and age. I mean, a book is a big piece of content. If you've got a book, you've got all the content you're ever going to need. That is it's going to set your tone of voice, as long as maybe one person's written or is written for tone of voice. Let's assume that blog post is on brand. Now, when you take that content out and repurpose it into videos and posts and small emails and things, it's going to be on brand. Because if you just slice and dice that content and change hardly any of it, it's perfect. It's all on brand.
And it's quicker and easier.
Much quicker, much easier. And you don't have to start every time you write a post, how is this going to be on brand? Now, I think a lot of people waste a lot of time with their social media. So we do this, don't we, with our content clients. We create what we call social snippets. So we create a couple of blog posts a month, and then we create social snippets from those blog posts. We do that for ease so that we don't have to keep getting sign off from the blogs, from the socials, sorry. So the client's already signed off the blog. And then we say, well, we'll just create all the social media off that now. You've signed off the way this content sounds and what we're talking about is all technically correct. Now all of these social media posts is quicker. I think most people should do that with their content because you're ticking so many boxes. You've got a blog on your website, which at the moment, until AI takes over the way we search, that's good for your search engine optimization. You can share that with your email list, which engages your email audience. You can push it out to your social media audience. You can create video content from it. And as we then know, from the next level, we can create podcasts out of it, videos out of it. We do webinars now, we've got workshops, and it's all coming from the same stuff. It's all coming from the same place. So that's the best way, I think, of keeping it on brand. Of course, the other way is to have brand guidelines. Yeah. I mean, how amazed were we the other week? Do you want to talk a little bit about brand guidelines? Because I'm always amazed, and you must be like fraught with disgust and amazement. Like, how often do you find companies don't have brand guidelines, and how important are they?
More often than I would like, because it makes everyone's life so much harder. As a marketer, coming in to come and support a business. And we speak sometimes to businesses who have been established for 10, 20 years, and somehow it's just never happened. It's just never got to the top of their pile, or they didn't think it was relevant, or they didn't think it was important. But it is. And it's not just visual brand guidelines either. It's not just, here's my logo, here's my color palette, we use this font and it's this size. It's actually tone of voice. Nobody really knows. A lot of the time they come to us and they don't know what their tone of voice is, and we have to do that piece with them before we can even put, pen to paper. We can't write anything until we know what that should be, because it is so important to get it consistent and make sure that it's professional and that it, their social sounds like it is from them, and not from a completely different person. So yeah, I've been really surprised at the number of people that haven't quite done that yet or got that sorted. And yeah, there are businesses out there, there are agencies or, freelancers who can help with that. But at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can do it yourself. You just need to spend a little bit of time devoted to going through the process. There's resources online where people can do that themselves, but they just need to do it.
And it's not just for a social media post, is it? Like, your tone of voice isn't just for social media, is it?
No.
What's it for as well?
Everything. Copywriting on websites, email marketing, even just the way that you talk to people in an everyday situation. So, for example, in Spaghetti Agency, we start all our emails with howdy, and it's just part of our brand guidelines and it's part of who we are. And what I really like is when clients start using it back to us, and that's when you've kind of infiltrated them and they're on board.
We say it on Zoom. Lynn answers the Spaghetti Agency office phone. Howdy, Lynn speaking.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Consistency.
Yeah.
And we have an email address called howdy@Spaghetti Agency, which is better than hello at or sales at or info at, because it's on brand.
It's on brand, yeah.
So I think for us particularly, because we're very brand focused, it's really important to have all those things in place. But even if you're not, it's still really important to know what your brand should look like.
I think we should do a podcast on branding.
We could do.
We should do one. Because we should stick to repurposing on this one, but I think there's a big conversation to be had around that.
Yeah. Okay.
Importance of brand and tone of voice and things.
Yeah.
Like that. Note to Todd editing this video. Don't forget, Todd, that we're going to do that in a few times.
Okay, we can do that. I mean, we're clearly not fussed about branding at all.
If you're listening to the podcast, by the way, you should really come and watch it on Instagram and TikTok and things, and you'll see our backdrop, which will probably just change every time, because every time Joe walks past an illuminated cactus in Waitrose, Sainsbury's, she will buy it, and that's it. So if you want to sell anything to Joe, just make it green and illuminated, and she will buy it.
I will.
Off you.
Social media keeps changing. So things like Instagram Reels change, TikTok rules changing all the time. How do you keep up with those things?
You go on those platforms.
Okay.
I get asked this question quite a lot, and I realised the other day
I'm sorry, I thought it was a great question. I thought it was highly original. I get asked that a lot. All right, answer it then.
Well, I did critique these questions, and I thought it was a good question, so I apologise for the way I answered that question.
I forgive you. Please continue.
I do get asked this question a lot. I'm trying to make myself sound important here.
Yeah, okay.
I get asked that question a lot, and
By all your fans, by all your raving followers, by your OnlyFans.
I wish I
people.
had raving followers, but unfortunately, it's just you and your mum. The best way to know what's working on the platforms is to use the platforms, not just have a Instagram app, but to go on Instagram, not just to occasionally scroll on TikTok, but to actually use it, because very quickly you will see the trends. You will work out what's working. You will see how people create their videos. You don't need people's courses, although if you would like to come on a course, we do sell them.
You definitely need people's courses.
Our courses are just great fun, but you can get all the answers for free on the internet. That's how it's always been. People still want it packaged up. But look, you should go on the platforms and you should look at what you enjoy consuming, like
Dog videos.
dog videos. We haven't been on a podcast workshop. No one's told us how to do a podcast. I've never.
You can't tell.
What? This is brilliant. We've never been on a social media workshop. We've never been on an email workshop. Like, I haven't been on a WordPress, how to build WordPress workshop. I've learned it myself. Now, I know I'm one of those types of people that likes to do that, but you can learn so much from the platforms. So how do you keep up to date with all the changes? Make sure you're using them. And the added bonus, and almost a rule that everyone should have put in place for their marketing, is if you're not part of the platform ain't going to give a shit about you. So if you're just turning up to TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn, posting your stuff and then leaving and coming back tomorrow and whinging about your reach, that's why you're not getting any reach, because you're not part of the platform. These social media apps track everything you do, like everything you do. So it knows if you're just a post and leave. You know, what did someone call it the other day? I can't remember what they called it. Shoot and go. No, it was something even more rude than that. But it was that, really. You turn up to social media, post and leave. That's not how it works. The algorithms want you to make this platform a community. They want you to go and consume with other people because other people want that. If everyone just posted and left, who'd comment on your videos? Who'd listen to your podcast? Nobody. If everyone created podcasts and didn't listen to podcasts, no one would create podcasts anymore. It just doesn't make any sense. So the best way to get engagement on your content is to give a crap about other people's content. So if you're using hashtags on Instagram, when was the last time you went and looked at videos in that hashtag and actually commented on them and helped those people's videos and commented on other people's stuff? That is a great way of getting your views and things working. But also, you start to understand how the platform works, and then you spot the changes, and then you know what's happening on social media apps. Then you can keep up, because you're not actually keeping up. You're just there. You just know. You just know what's going on.
Okay. And what's a big myth about social media that might be tripping up small businesses? So what's the thing that everyone tells you or everyone asks you because you're so popular?
I feel like that question was slightly spicy.
What does everyone ask you about social media? What do people believe about social media that isn't true?
I'll tell you a new belief.
Okay.
So it was a belief that was probably true a while ago that now is not true.
Okay.
And that's that having followers on social media is a big thing, because it doesn't matter as much now. And I believe the way that it's going, it probably won't matter at all. Because
that's a statement, that is.
It's a very old-fashioned way of looking at social media to say that when I post, my followers see my content, right? We all know that doesn't happen.
Do we all know that?
Okay, well, if we don't know that, you do now. Okay. If you post on social media, some people who aren't connected with you will see it. Facebook groups are a good example. If you go to a public Facebook group and you comment in there, your friends that aren't in the group may see your content. So social media has been changing for quite a long time. And then TikTok came along and literally redesigned how social media works. They came along and said, it doesn't matter about followers. It matters about the content. If your content's really good And currently people are interested in that type of content. We'll show you to lots of people who
That's
have
true.
no idea who you are.
Yeah.
Instagram at the moment are toying with the idea, apparently, of doing that. Now, clearly, from our views on our reels, it ain't working at the moment because I've tried it. It's like, that's not happening yet. But they are toying with the idea of going more down a content-driven route than a follower-driven route, which is going to really annoy people with loads of followers on Instagram because it's like you spent all of that time building those followers. And now that doesn't matter. It's the content that matters. Ultimately, the platforms will win because they, and the humans really on there as well, but the platforms want great content. Dogs don't really go on Instagram.
You're obviously following the wrong account.
I mean, they're on Instagram, but they're not on it. They're in it. So that's where it's going. So a big myth I think people have at the moment is I need more followers. I need to grow my followers. No, you need better content.
Okay. Mic drop.
That was quite good. That was just easy for me to edit, you see.
Is this future Todd thanking you?
I don't know what it is, to be honest.
Okay.
What is this? What are we even doing?
What is this? It's a very good question. How do you figure out whether your social media is paying off, particularly if you're not looking at follower numbers and reach and all those metrics that we're now saying are less important than they used to be?
It's a really good question.
Thanks.
I'm just leaving a gap for the editing. I just thought that would be a good bit to edit out. It's a really good question because what does success look like? That's what our coach Kevin would say. What does success look like? So if you are just blindly posting on social media because someone on a podcast said you should post on social media, then you've got to question, well, what's the point of that? How am I going to gauge whether it's a success or not? And as we've already highlighted here, is like, well, follower count doesn't really matter. Reach is a bit pointless. Well, what is success then? If I tell you what success is for us, that might help you understand what success is for you. So success for us is, like all businesses, someone buys from you. Great. Do they buy directly from social media? Most likely not.
In B2B services.
In B2B services, yeah. But you'll still buy things from social media. I buy things from social media all the time, but generally speaking, not straight away.
I buy a lot of things from social media, and what arrives is never quite what I thought it was going to be.
No, I do the recycling at home. So success is obviously sales, but for us, it's like when we're in a sales conversation and that person we're talking to has seen our content, or they've been influenced by someone who's seen our content. That for me is successful social media. So for us, it's about creating content that shows that we know what we're talking about. We're relatable people. We understand your pain. We're good at what we do, that kind of stuff. That's the social media we create because we know that success for our social media is someone is interested in buying from us. They take a look at our social media and it encourages them to buy from us. Someone literally said it to me about 6 months ago. The reason I'm talking to you now is because a few months ago, you posted something on social media and I haven't forgotten it. I remembered it and that's why I've come to you. I didn't even ask them. They said, that's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. That is why I'm speaking to you. That's our success.
But they didn't post or comment, I would like to speak to you now because this comment is amazing.
No. So success on social media is not reach. Because reach is how many people it's reached. But were they in that reach? Maybe. It reached 200 people. Amazing. Who? We can't tell it. So it's a useless figure, really. It's a slight metric to give you a bit of a ballpark where you are. Social media success is also not comments or likes because the people that buy from you rarely comment or like. We've proved this time and time again. Lots of the people that buy from us don't go to our website. They have no idea about our email list. We've checked on the analytics and data. They're not really engaging on our social, but they did at one point. The moment they did, it gave them just the information they needed, just a bit more trust that they needed, and then they made a decision with other things. For us, that's success on social media. So it really depends what you're trying to achieve with your social media. So if you're running a competition to get more likes and you get more likes, great. But is that really what you want? Like, what are you going to do with those likes? Is that going to make a difference to your business? So you've got to ask yourself a question like, what am I trying to achieve? Brand awareness is important. There's nothing wrong with brand awareness. How do you measure brand awareness with social media? Are you tracking every single inquiry that comes in? How did you hear about us? That type of stuff, basic stuff. Or are you being a bit more analytical, tracking QR codes and website traffic? But I just want people to consider it like, what does success look like? And is it the right success? Is it an achievable success? Does it make sense to my business success? Because I think a lot of people just blindly use social media, and like people will start blindly using AI, right? And they'll just start using it. But it's like, well, does it solve a problem you have? If it doesn't, why are you playing around with it?
Because it's really good fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's nice to have someone to talk to that doesn't answer back and does as you tell it to do.
Which is probably the best conversation we ever have. Once a month, 1 hour.
Speaking of viral and numbers, have you ever had a post go viral unexpectedly?
Yeah. Had a post on TikTok last year, go viral. Totally unexpected. I had a few
Why
posts.
was it unexpected?
Because most of my posts were okay. They were 5,000-10,000 views, which in TikTok terms is quite low, really. If that was on my Instagram, I'd be chuffed to bits. But it was like, oh, I'm doing good. I thought that was good, by the way. I was really pleased with that. And then this video that I created in my car after I'd been to the gym. First time I've mentioned the gym in this podcast.
You go to the gym?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mentioned it earlier as well, but it was someone else in the gym. Anyway, I created this video, it's a 60-second video, in my car after the gym because I just had an idea walking to the car. So I'm going to get a few pictures, stick them together, and do a voiceover in my car. Now, the sound quality in a car is pretty good, and sound quality on TikTok's good, so I shouldn't be surprised by that. I used a track that talked about alcohol. My video was about quitting drinking, so it made sense to the video. I didn't realise how popular the track was, so I accidentally used the trending audio. Didn't realise. And the pictures are okay, but it was a really good sort of put together story. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, actually, it kind of had all the elements. It had like good audio, trending music, and a bit of a story to it. It kind of had a beginning and a middle and an end, all in 60 seconds. It's TikTok gold, isn't it? No one wants to wait for the transformation. Well, we're going to go on a weight loss thing. Great. Will I be fit in 60 minutes? No. 60 seconds? No. 5 years? Oh, I'm not interested. Whereas on TikTok, you can watch someone else do it in 60 seconds.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
very satisfying.
So it had all the elements of a viral piece of content. And it just did really, really well. And then I had another one go viral on TikTok, which was a lot longer. It was about 3 minutes, where I was just really sarcastic, which comes easily to me. And I did a video where I was just really sarcastic, saying, don't quit drinking because, like, you'll look better, you'll lose weight, people will say nice things to you, you'll have more money. And I was just really, really sarcastic about it. And I got mostly positive comments in there, but they were also being sarcastic as well, saying, yeah, I think I'll just keep drinking, mate. Now, they were serious. They were going to keep drinking.
Yeah.
But it was a really nice way of sort of engaging with trolls because they were just being sarcastic as well. And it generated a lot of interest in there.
What
So
have you learned from going viral? The components of what it takes?
Definitely reminded me of the components, yes. It also, which is good to hear, reminded me that even when you reach millions of people, because both those videos reach millions of people, the hate is very low. The trolling is very low. Because all I hear about is like, oh, what if I get trolled on the internet? Now,
Is this your fans asking you this as well? They've got a lot of questions for you, haven't you?
I get asked this a lot.
Do you get asked it a
I
lot?
get asked this a lot.
Is it the queue outside the house of like banging on the door?
I've had
Todd,
queues.
please answer my social media questions.
I've had queues to talks I've given. Yeah. It's only because I locked the door and I couldn't get in, but it looked good for Instagram. I've totally forgotten what I was going to say.
Post going viral unexpectedly.
Yeah. And what have I learned from it? The negativity people always talk about, like, oh, you'll get loads of hate and stuff. It's so small. It is so small. But because you're a human being, you focus on the negative. So I have had times where I've not spent as much time on TikTok because the negative comments got me down. But I've had hundreds of thousands of positive comments and 10 negative comments. And it's the 10 negative comments that I focus on because I'm a human being and that's what I do. So
I thought
I've
you
learned
were some sort of demigod now.
No, I am sort of that as well.
And a Zen master.
Yeah. But even with all those amazing attributes that I have, I still struggle with the negative comments on social media.
But,
so
I mean,
I've learned quite a bit.
That does lead me on to my next and final question, actually. How do you deal with negative comments online?
You go deep into those comments and you reply to every single one of them and you use them to make your content better.
Some people would say ignore them.
No, I think that's terrible advice unless you're a really, really famous person. If you're a small business, you must reply to every single negative review and comment you ever have. Do not leave that there. And if you're the type of company that's paying for Facebook ads and not looking at the comments, then this is for you. Please reply to all of your negative comments. It shows you're a human being. It shows that you care. And it also helps your post do better as well if you're interested in your post doing better. I believe that you only really build a strong bond with a company, restaurants is a good example, when they fix a problem you've had. We all expect it to be good. You don't go to a restaurant and think it's probably going to be rubbish and then you're surprised that it's good. You just expect it to be good. You only really build a strong connection with that restaurant when they sort a problem out that came up. So comments on social media are a great example of that. It also gives you the opportunity to respond and show the person, you know, another level to your kind of thought, opinion you've put online. And what I found, certainly on TikTok anyway, is that when I respond to negative comments, my fans, I've got a lot of fans, they come in and have a go at the person that's had a go at me. So I sometimes just like the touch paper and leave the troll to it. Do you know the best thing you can do with negative comments on TikTok though? Is you press and hold it and do a video reply to that comment. You really string that person right up, and I see that happening a lot. I follow a DJ online who plays music in his house, but his family must hate him. He literally just plays like trance and garage music in his lounge. And he had a comment the other day from someone saying, "You're basically just getting clout from people who create great music. Like, who are you?" And he's actually a really, really famous DJ. And he pressed and held the comment, did a video about it, and got this poor person that just put a throwaway comment on TikTok, just got absolutely annihilated. So I think the worm has turned on trolls, and I do think you should respond to negative comments, but I don't think you should fear negative comments because, believe it or not, I'm quite opinionated on social media.
Wow.
And I don't get that many negative comments, and when I do, I'm prepared for them, but nothing happens. They don't come out of the screen and kick me. It's just words. You have to be quite thick-skinned, I guess, so I have to sort of check my bias here. I am quite thick-skinned. I always say I don't care what people think. I really, really do care what people think, which is why I've changed the camera angle for this podcast. I really do care what people think. But I am slightly more thick-skinned, so I'll check my bias there a little bit. But I really do think people should embrace the negativity. You'll definitely learn things from the negativity. You will. Just because someone disagrees with you, by the way, doesn't mean they're a troll. I think that's the other thing to just add to this. If often, I'm being trolled. No, they just don't agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing altogether.
Yeah. Okay. Any final parting words on content repurposing?
Please repurpose your content. Like, don't create a wonderful piece of content and then neglect to see how it could work on LinkedIn. And also, if you post it on LinkedIn and it bombed, maybe you didn't put it in the right format. Maybe polls are dead. Create a carousel. Maybe it would have been better as a video. Repurposing content allows you to take a really great idea, a really good piece of content, and put it onto multiple platforms and test it. It's a bit of work. There's a bit of effort involved in it, but repurposing content, it really does save you time over the period of a week, month, or year that you're doing your marketing. And as a final thing, look at artificial intelligence and how it can help you repurpose. Because ChatGPT is generic, but if you put your blog posts and videos into it, like we use video tools to turn video into text, putting that into AI will really create you a ton of content. It's worth the effort.
So thank you for joining us on this podcast. Next month, we are going to be talking about the tools marketers use to make online marketing simpler. So get it thinking about that, and we will be discussing that next month. If you'd like to get hold of us or become one of Todd's fans, just join.
Or Joe's fans. You've got a lot of fans too.
The massive group of Todd's fans.
All 6 of them.
You can email us howdy@spaghettyagency.co.uk. Feel free to get in touch and let us know any positive things that you think about this. Anything negative, we're not interested. Please don't tell us.
And we really are, though. We are.
We are very interested.
We are very interested because we have changed the camera angle.
Yes. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will speak to you next time. Thank you.
Bye. You know, the camera died completely forever. It's fine because I only use the one camera anyway. I'll just do that one. Unless it's just pointed at me, then we're fucked. The camera definitely kept dying.
Yeah, it's the heat. It was giving me like because it's fully charged.
Yeah, that was fine. And we've got both of us in that, haven't we? So I can move it around from there. So.
But don't book again. Just drop me a message when you next want to book in.
Have we not booked the next one?
No, you have, but like after that, if you needed to.
Yeah, we do.
Because just let me know. Don't pay for that one. Just drop me a message.
Oh,
okay. This is a learning curve for us as well. But yeah, it's on. It's absolutely fine.
One after another doesn't work, does it? It's too hot.
But it worked fine yesterday, like for like 5 hours straight.
Might be a bit hotter
The heat in
today.
I think it is.
Yeah.
The heat.
Is it showing an
open the
overheat? Is
window?
it coming up?
It's fine now, but when I came in and when I was stood here for a little awkwardly for a while, it gave it like a little like thermometer,
Yeah.
Right.
which I've never seen before. So it's the heat.
I wonder if you need some sort of cooling.
Yeah, it would make a noise. It's not the microphone booms on the top, is it? They're little fluffy things.
I don't know to fair,
in
it
the way
might
of a
actually
fan.
help because they're only there if like you're vlogging and stuff. So they don't actually need to be on. Have you done?
Yeah, yeah.
No.